And I can't tell you how many young parents tell me that their kids watch the show because there's very little innocence left on television.
America spent 6 seasons believing Carol Brady was the flawless mom every kid deserved. What no one saw, what even her own castmates only whispered about, was the price Florence Henderson paid to wear that halo. From sharing a single bed with 9 siblings in an ice-cold shack, to flying coast to coast every weekend just to keep her real children from forgetting her face, Henderson's life was equal parts triumph and turmoil. Decades later, her family and friends are lifting the curtain on the marriage cracks, the hush-hush love affairs, and the on-set meltdowns that nearly killed the Brady dream. But long before a studio audience applauded her perfect haircut, a teenaged Florence was singing in grocery aisles just to buy flour, because failure in her house meant no dinner, and that's where our story really begins. It was 1934, the tail end of the Great Depression. In tiny Dale, Indiana, the Henderson house had walls so thin winter wind sliced straight through. 10 kids, 2 exhausted parents, and exactly 1 source of heat, each other's body warmth. Nights were spent rotating positions in a sagging bed. Whoever scored the middle got a few hours without shivering. Poverty wasn't a temporary slump, it was the family trade. Amid the chill, Florence's mother taught her a secret weapon: music. The girl could carry a tune before she could read, and by 12 she was performing in local stores. The payment: bags of sugar, sacks of flour, maybe a hunk of cheese if the manager felt generous. Her voice wasn't some hopeful hobby, it was a meal ticket. Her father, already in his 70s when Florence was born, trudged tobacco fields as a sharecropper, surrendering most of the harvest to someone else's ledger. Sometimes he came home with nothing but a jar of moonshine, liquid escape for him, empty plates for everyone else. Yet within that hardship, Florence spotted 2 lessons she'd never forget. No complaint ever earned bread, and hard work sometimes did. That mindset became armor. By 8, townsfolk called her Florency, sunshine personified. What looked like cheer was actually strategy. People helped the upbeat girl, not the angry one. That attitude soon paid off. A high school play changed everything. A friend's parents witnessed her raw talent and, almost on impulse, paid her tuition to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York. 17 years old, 1 suitcase, and a bus ticket. Florence bolted toward a future she could barely pronounce. The city was brutal, auditions even worse. Then came the humiliation that should have ended things. Midway through a Broadway tryout, her swimsuit tore clean open. Gasps rippled through the room. Florence, cheeks blazing, cracked a joke, stapled her composure back together, and finished the scene. The director roared with laughter and offered her the part. That tiny role caught the eye of Rodgers and Hammerstein, who cast her as Laurie in the national tour of Oklahoma. But opening night arrived with a phone call no daughter wants. Her father had died. There was no understudy, no airfare home, no pause button. She sang through tears and made curtain call without missing a beat. The show went on, and so did she, though the sting never fully healed. The next punch came courtesy of her own anatomy. Doctors discovered a rare bone deformity inside her ear. Left unchecked, it would steal her hearing permanently. In the 1950s, ear surgery was closer to dice rolling than medicine. One slip of a scalpel could erase her livelihood in seconds. She booked the operation anyway, and married aspiring theater manager Ira Bernstein that same month. Honeymoon photos show a radiant bride. Her medical chart told a shakier story. The gamble worked. Hearing intact, she roared back onto Broadway 5 years later, embodying Maria in The Sound of Music. Yet the marriage, already fraying under spotlight pressure, began its slow unravel. Distance Florence refused to notice, at least not yet. If stage lights fed her soul, television supercharged her reach. NBC's Today Show hired her in 1959 as one of the Today Girls, meaning fluff segments, product demos, and weather chit-chat while men handled real news. Florence swallowed the sexism, delivered each line with disarming warmth, and quietly expanded the lane so a young researcher named Barbara Walters could one day sprint right through it. 2 years later, NBC needed an emergency host for The Tonight Show. Parr had quit. Carson hadn't started. Ratings were wobbling. A woman in late night was unthinkable, but Henderson had already become the audience's unofficial comfort blanket. She stepped behind the desk, volleyed jokes with Jerry Lewis, grilled Art Linkletter, and proved millions would watch a smart, quick-witted woman after dark. Commercial directors took notice. Oldsmobile cast her in musical ads where she belted chorus lines while selling sedans, a nostalgic mashup that made middle-class viewers trust her instantly. She'd just discovered the golden intersection of charm and commerce. When producer Sherwood Schwartz started casting a sitcom about a blended family in 1969, Florence wasn't even Plan B. The first call went to Shirley Jones, who balked at Pot Roast Purgatory and chose The Partridge Family instead. Suddenly, Henderson, the woman who had once lost Oklahoma to Jones, landed the role that would freeze her in pop culture amber. From day one, she questioned the script. Why didn't Carol work? Why was the parenting so syrupy? Henderson, who'd raised 4 kids while never skipping a rehearsal, argued that viewers would resent perfection. ABC disagreed. Carol would stay angelic and silent on her past. Was she divorced? Widowed? The network refused to say, fearing divorce was too messy for family hours. So Carol Brady existed in a mystery bubble, prompting Florence to joke for years, "I killed my husband. I'm television's original Black Widow." Off camera, she fought smaller wars. She insisted on real-looking tantrums, realistic discipline, even lobbied for Carol to wear pants at a time when TV moms were glued into skirts. Some victories stuck, most didn't, but each push carved a little authenticity into the glossy veneer. While America memorized Brady catchphrases, stagehands whispered about tension you could slice with a hairpin. Robert Reed, the dashing TV patriarch, privately shouldered the terror of being gay in 1970s Hollywood. Rumors floated, but proof meant career obliteration. Florence became his confidant, the only person he could exhale around. During romantic scenes, he'd tense up. She'd call for a quick powder break, reset the mood, and shield him from suspicion without a syllable of judgment. Reed's bottled anxiety sometimes detonated. He loathed scripts he deemed too silly and, in the final season, flat out, refused to film an episode about Greg's hair turning orange. Production nearly imploded. Florence eased cast morale, improvised lines to explain Mike Brady's business trip, and carried the finale on her shoulders. Tabloids were slower to implode, but faster to chase rumor. Teenage Barry Williams confessed in his memoir that he'd nursed a G-rated crush on Florence, treating her to dinner at the Ambassador Hotel when he was 15. Decades later, gossip rags twisted the anecdote into scandal. Co-star Susan Olsen blasted the insinuations. Williams clarified there was admiration, but zero impropriety. Florence, ever candid, rolled her eyes. "I wasn't exactly the Cher of the TV mom set." Another headline, however, she provided herself. In her 2011 memoir, Henderson revealed a 1960s one-night encounter with then New York City Mayor John Lindsay. Both were married. Loneliness blurred judgment. The next morning, she awoke to tiny black stowaways. Crabs. Florence recounted the fiasco with deadpan humor, proof that even America's mom could face cringe-level karma. Behind the laughter lurked costlier fallout. Cross-country flights every Friday night to see her real children, back to L.A. by Monday dawn, took a toll no sitcom paycheck could fix. By the early 80s, the marriage to Bernstein disintegrated. Exhaustion filled the cracks. Fame couldn't. mute the panic attacks. Stage fright tightened its grip, flying felt like Russian roulette, and depression wrapped around her like winter in Dale. Traditional therapy fizzled. Desperate, she signed up for hypnotherapy classes at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, initially as patient, then as student, finally as licensed practitioner. There she met Dr. John Kappas, whose calm unraveled knots years of applause hadn't touched. They married in 1987. For 15 years he was her anchor until his death in 2002. Career-wise, Florence pivoted into one of television's smartest safety nets, advertising. Starting in 1974, she became the face of Wesson cooking oil, chirping about Wessonality in spots that aired for 23 straight years. While Hollywood routinely sidelines women past 40, Henderson cashed residual checks and baked banana bread on live TV. She spun that credibility into Country Kitchen, a 9-year syndicated run interviewing celebs over cornbread and catfish, then The Florence Henderson Show, earning an Emmy nod for conversations mainstream networks deemed too senior to matter. Viewers, hungry for sincerity, tuned in anyway. Legacy institutions took notice. In 2008, the Smithsonian positioned Florence's career beside cultural giants, accepting her People's Choice Trophy for permanent display. She joked the award finally had better shelf space than her kitchen mixer. Fast forward to November 21, 2016. Audience cameras at Dancing with the Stars caught her beaming as Maureen McCormick, forever Marcia, performed a foxtrot. Florence clapped, laughed, waved. 3 days later,